So, did you read Mark's memo?
Just reading it now.
Where
Yeah.
this is the one that's dated January 30th?
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're item number 3 on his list. And this was based upon some work that I did and some information I got from the Sparhawk audit. And we came up with 7 items that we felt would help the building and reduce some of the energy. And I did review this with the Sustainability Committee. Did I say that properly? Is that their name?
That's
Good for you,
enough.
yeah, you did.
And I don't know if you want me to read through them, if everybody has read through them, or if you have questions about them.
You can go through 'em.
Okay.
We get the time.
So the first one is general air sealing, and I don't know how many people are familiar with it. This is going around and plugging all the holes, and it's a tedious, piecemeal type of thing, but it's very important to get the building tight. Buildings can be, I'm working on another building similar to this for the town of Waldoboro, and their building is 40% infiltration.
Wow.
And that's with the heating load, and probably 27 to 30 on the cooling load.
I'm willing to bet if we added it all up, we'd have a square foot of opening, you know.
Yeah, you can do that
Yeah.
with the blower door test. You can get a rough estimate. So that's important to do, and not only for the infiltration, but also if you have a lot of air coming through, it can degrade your insulation, your R value. So that was one item. And here comes Howie. Hi, Howie.
Hi there.
And the next item that I looked at was and I did this with, what do I want to say, Tim Clark, and we looked at the back door. That back door that you used as an employee entrance is in pretty sad shape, and it's an old wooden door,
Yeah.
and it just has single pane glass. And I have some shots of it with a infrared camera. So recommending, not only from an energy point of view, but really from a maintenance point of view, replace it with a insulated either metal or fiberglass type of door.
I'd like to have a nickel for every time that door's been opened and closed.
Oh, yeah, it's
Pretty old,
Yeah.
worn out.
so that will increase the R value of that door considerably and also cut down on the air infiltration. The front entrance, the dual doors, you can see a gap, and that's another thing that's kind of a maintenance thing. I'd say every 3 to 5 years, you should replace the weather stripping depending upon the frequency of the use of the door. And we also went around and looked at all the windows in the 1987 section, which are, a lot of those date back to when building was built in 87. Some of them have been replaced upstairs in the dormers, because the dormers were new. All these windows were 2002 or 2, I think. And they're pretty good, they're decent windows. And windows are very seldom an economical thing to replace. But what has been proven is if you can put another storm window on the outside or the inside, it can really improve the R value. Windows are in U, but it's easier to talk in R because that's what most people are understand rather. And I've done this before. One of the clients is the Irish Heritage Center in Portland, and a lot of churches do it, put them on the outside because it protects the stained glass. And so it protects the glass, and it also improves your heat loss through the windows. And once you put the new system in, the HVAC system in, you're probably not going to open up those windows. So I would recommend putting them on the outside. They're more effective on the outside, and they protect the windows better. So that's another item. When I went around, number 5, when I went around with my infrared camera, and I probably should have tried to bring some shots of the infrared camera, all around the building you can see where the heat comes out, and a lot of people complain about how their feet are cold, and there's a number of things that contribute to that. One of them is that the concrete conducts cold, and it's a colder surface. We feel heat and heat loss in 3 ways, and one is radiation. So we're, with clothes on, people say our body is about 80 degrees. This is what one of the ASHRAE studies that have been done. And the walls, you know, they're going to be much colder. So your body radiates to that. And that's why they put insulation around the foundation so much now. The early 1987 section never had any insulation around it. This one does. This section does. So I recommend that you go around and dig around and go down, if you can get down 2 feet, and put 2 inches of rigid insulation on it and then cover it. The one thing that you're going to have to do is bend a piece of flashing and fit it up behind the shingles, so that you get some drainage and you also get a good drip edge. And so that way you'll have a drip edge, and you'll hopefully, if anything gets behind the shingles, it has a way out, and then you'll improve the insulation. Number 6, up in the, especially the 1987 section, where what we call the knee wall, that's where you see the roof is sloped, and then there's a straight section, and there's little cubby holes behind there. Those have not been as well insulated, and go in there and try to air seal, and where the roof rafters and the wall comes together at the headers, that's a weak spot. If you look at it with an infrared camera, you can see the blue and the air infiltration. Air seal that and put a layer of rigid insulation on there, fire-rated rigid insulation, and that will improve the R value there. The other thing that I looked at is what I call the bump-out windows in the front. And there's been, when I've been in this building, I don't know how many times, and I've always been reminded about the complaints that people are cold there. And when I looked at them and I went up, you can get down your hands and knees, look at them and took pictures, you can see there's some gaps. And when we looked at the plans, I don't think they were well insulated. And it also looks like you're probably going to have some maintenance issues in there, because there are some gaps, and some of the trim pieces probably need to be replaced. So pull the plywood off, put some rigid or foam insulation up in there, get it to fit tightly and air seal it, get the trim around it, and that should improve that. So those are the items on there. One thing I did write up, giving my ideas on how you may package it. If you look down in the items that were considered but weren't recommended, one of the things that we talked about doing, Tim and I, was around the windows, look at these windows, you'll see this trim piece, and you have the window itself, and then you have what they call the rough frame, the framing around it, and there's typically a gap there. And especially in the older building, 1987, we questioned whether it was ever foamed or even stuffed with bad insulation, fiberglass bad insulation. And the recommendation would be to pull a couple of them off and see if that's an issue there. It isn't included in this list to have them fixed, but it would be recommended at least take a look so we know what the situation is. I think if you take one up from downstairs and upstairs, you're going to be able to say, yeah, it's probably this way throughout. And that would be something else that I would recommend be done. I did a cost analysis of what we would save. This is on the next page. Did I put my glasses there? No, they're right here, sorry. Okay.
Why don't we ask them any questions?
Well, okay, we should probably. I asked them if they had any questions.
Okay.
They just want me to go through the list. Do you want to ask questions now?
Nope,
Beck?
no, keep going.
Okay.
I don't have any.
So what the table does, this is a typical table that when I've done work with Efficiency Maine that they use. And based upon the improvements, it tells you how many kilowatts you're going to save. And with a lot of things, it can be air conditioning, it can be electricity for motors and fans, and then oil for the heat. And so you come up with an estimated annual savings. And then the next line item is the capital cost, what it's going to cost to make this improvement work. And there's a line there for cost avoidance. I didn't use that except at the door, because I think you're going to have to replace that door anyway. So what I did is I put a number in there that kind of represents a standard door as to maybe a better performing door. And so I took that as cost avoidance. Unfortunately, we couldn't qualify for any efficiency main rebates. Last year, they had one for small municipalities for the building envelope, and the cutoff was 5,000, and we were 5,030, and we couldn't qualify for it. And this year, what they've done with the big push for heat pumps, they're not doing the building envelope anymore. They're putting all the money towards heat pumps and a variable refrigerant flow system. And you may be able to get some money with the HVAC on that, depending upon what you do. Then I just did a simple payback, which is you take the savings, you take the capital cost, and you divide it by the savings, and it gives you what we call simple payback, how many years you get that. And then the next thing is useful life, because some of these are longer term. You'll know some are 25 years, one of them's 5 years. When you look at a longer term investment and the improvement lasts for a longer period of time, the simple payback really doesn't give you a good idea. So we use something called SEER, Savings to Investment Ratio. And what you do is you take the annual savings and you multiply it times the useful life, and then you divide the capital cost into it. And anything that's over 1 means you're getting a savings. And you can see what the list is down the list, what the years are and what the SEER is, and they're all except we had one that we didn't put on here that was close to 1, and most of these, except for the weather stripping, are really pretty good. Some of them are quite good. So I did that for each line, each recommended improvement, and so it kind of gives you a financial analysis of what the estimated cost would be. And believe me, these are budget costs. The market is changing so crazy. I did these last fall, and I don't know what they would be today, but I can guarantee you they're going to be more.
Yeah.
That's it on the recommendations, and I won't go into this too much, but I did produce this today, and I'm sorry I couldn't get it to you earlier, but I tried to package these so that I don't recommend that you put this out on the street as one big package, but break it down into smaller packages, because they're different types of work, different types of material. A good example is the windows. You'd probably want to go to some like Cumberland glass or Portland glass or
Oh, yeah, for the storms.
for the storms, and you don't want to go through somebody else who's just going to sub it out, and maybe wouldn't be interested because they don't want to get involved with having to do all that. So I tried to group those together, which I thought was logical. They may or not be something that will work out, and I will say that it's probably going to take some work to get some people to bid on all of these, because the market is very busy, and the number of people that are doing this is dwindling.
It's hard to find people to do the smaller jobs.
Yeah,
isn't it?
and really, I know that you've used, was it Handy?
Harley?
He could probably do some of this work. And there may be some other people, I think, if you hunt around, that would be interested. And I know you have a statute where you have to bid, which anything is over, what, 4,000? So,
I think we're at 5 now.
so, anything that's over, my estimate over the numbers, you're going to have to put it out in the street, but you may only get 1 or 2 or no bidders.
Yeah.
And that's just the way of life right now, unfortunately.
So the estimate's between 25 and 30.
Yes, and I recommended that, I think that's why Mark put the 25 to 30, because there is escalation and there are market conditions.
So what, remind me
Unfortunately-
what we have in that?
Well, I think, we have a resiliency and sustainability reserve, so I mean, that's obviously
Okay.
an area that could support this work. I don't know if Mary Ann, who chairs that committee, would like to speak to that issue or have it go back to her committee.
Actually, we went in front of them.
Okay.
And so are there any questions on the individual items?
Anderson used to make a storm window, custom fitted to their windows. I don't know if they still do or not. I remember years back running
Yeah.
against it.
They have, and I don't know if they still do or not.
Easy
There's-
enough to find out.
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 people around here, and I got my figures on those storm windows. I do a lot of work on historic buildings, and the park department is in charge of all these historic buildings that we have throughout the country in different parks and so forth. And they've done some improvements, and they've got very good information on what they've used and what the improvements yielded, and that's where I got a lot of my information.
And also, once we get the new HVA system, because, you know, in the wintertime, I don't know how many 1,500 watt heaters are running here.
Oh, yeah.
40 hours a week times 10. And in the summertime, you got, you know, window, air conditioning unit, stuck out windows, and, you know, hopefully, that's gonna cure our
That'll go
problem.
away.
Yeah.
I don't think you're ever going to cure some of the chilly or the cold feeling where people are at their desk on an outside window in the
Yeah.
older building, but you'll reduce it.
Yeah.
And hopefully you'll reduce it enough that you'll only see the electric heaters when the conditions are really cold. So, I don't know if Mary Ann wanted to say anything about her committee and
No.
what they thought about it.
It wasn't expensive as I thought it might be.
Well,
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I looked at some things, quite honestly, and I was surprised. When we got the grant, I'm trying to remember, with the Macon, with the group of people, we
Okay.
did do some work, and they did a lot of air sealing, and originally there was just a layer of bad insulation above those things, and they went in there and they blew in.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Blew in, I think it was fiberglass insulation. And to go back and try to, you know, really improve it, you'd have to take all that stuff out of there, and then do some air sealing, and then blow all the stuff back. And when I looked at the numbers,
Never mind.
Didn't make sense.
you're better off putting it in, put that kind of money into the HVAC system.
Yeah.
That was my conclusion.
So you guys are willing to do the homework on who we need to approach for contractors and what kind of a package need to put together?
I think
That'll be the next
that
step?
needs to be a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
I'm going to be away for a while, but I'd be willing to help, and I think, you know,
So we need
some
a-
people here that maybe have some ideas.
We don't need a vote actually, but a nod, right? to get-
Well, I think, you know, you would need to vote to authorize the use of the reserve fund for this.
Okay, well, this is a workshop, so we
But,
can't vote.
right,
yet,
at,
so,
at
yeah.
the select board meeting that starts at 6. But Mary Ann, would you like to speak to the use of the reserve for the project?
I'm trying to remember, John came to our last meeting in January,
Yes.
and we talked about this, and I believe we voted to support the project, basically. I don't know that we discussed the reserve account. We have a meeting coming up Tuesday. Be glad to, if that's the option, the way you want to go. And what did you say, the project was almost 20 to 30?
It's 25 to 30 estimated.
25 to 30.
I mean, we have another reserve that we have for the HVAC system, and we're putting additional money into it or asking the voters to. So if, again, we don't know exactly how much this HVAC system, the three-phase power, you know, transition is going to cost, so, I mean,
You know, we've set this goal of around $100,000. And I think that, you know, that has to be considered if we have a project that's $50,000 or $60,000 to use it, that doesn't leave much left until the following year if we want to increase it or replace it. So I think we'll bring it up at the meeting, and
I mean, it could be structured in a way that if there's remaining money in the reserve that's funding the town office improvements, including the HVAC, it could potentially be used for this. But if our project for HVAC and the three-phase power is tight, then it would have to be the other
Yeah,
option.
and I think, it might not be the full amount and be part of the amount. I think this is something we just have to keep talking about as you get closer to doing it.
There needs to be a vote on the record about using the sustainability reserve. I mean, it certainly meets the category of what
It meets the
everybody
category.
anticipated that money would be used for, so.
And I think we should bring it up at the next meeting and get a sense of the group. And, it meets the category, and it is town funds. So, my sense is, our only concern would be what I suggested. If it was going to be used for more than a couple projects during the year, we wouldn't want to get it down so low that we would not be able to apply for any future money.
I mean, when I look at this list, and I really appreciate the work, John, that went into it, I'm thinking, can't we go weather strip the front office door for $265? That's a maintenance piece right there.
One of
Yeah.
the things is
You know,
why
I-
we put it into, I put some packages out. We can do a package at a time, and, we could probably set some priorities
Yes.
Yeah.
as to what's important.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it seems to me we could replace that back door
Employee door
fairly
needs-
quickly.
Yeah.
We should be able to find somebody to do that as just on its own, get it done.
But we
And
can order
as a
them.
maintenance item, again, I
Yeah.
think, John, you mentioned some of these pieces being,
Yes, they're
more
partially
maintenance.
energy improvements and they're partially maintenance.
yeah, but then you get into storm windows, that's kind of a different category.
Yeah.
How many storm windows were you anticipating here?
All the windows in the older section, I don't.
Like, was there a number? I just wasn't clear on that. Are we
I was
talking?
gonna say, for some reason, 26. I don't have all my
Oh.
information with me.
But we don't need to approve the funding before they can start doing the homework on it.
No, but I'm just saying, we could actually do some of these things out of our
Right.
maintenance
Right, right.
budget. Like, we
Right.
could replace the back door, we could weather strip the front door. We should talk more about how we fund the storm windows.
Sure.
But some of these things really
But they
are
could put
maintenance.
together
Even some of these insulation pieces are not that substantial, so.
But all I'm thinking is they can start putting together the, the things that aren't substantial. I mean,
Yeah,
leave
so
those
the
out.
things like contacting Portland glass, but how many storm windows are we talking? We need to get some more detail on that, and then they would
I've
give
got
us
some.
a specific number, and we could bring that back to the board.
My computer crashed the beginning of December. I lost all those worksheets.
Yeah.
And I finally found someone called the Nerd Barn in Topsom.
Oh, yeah.
He was able to download
Oh, yeah.
my stuff off of my hard drive. So now I just got it back the other day.
Yeah.
Now I can get
Yeah.
back into my worksheets.
Oh, commercial for Nerdbahn.
Yeah. I took my phone.
Yeah, it
back.
has more numbers, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think maybe what the staff could do is really look at some of these items that seem more like maintenance, and they could actually come out of the maintenance budget. And then we should really look at what might be more of capital, improvements. And that would either come out of a reserve that we have for the HVAC and town office improvements, or potentially the sustainability reserve for capital items.
right, for the larger items, yeah.
So I think we could do a little work on that.
So does that mean, are you suggesting, Christie, then it comes back to the select board after you've done that? Or
Yeah, I think so,
yeah,
because
so then
I
we'll
think
be
we're talking
doing it
about
in
some
two-
items being maintenance. And they wouldn't have to be in a bid package.
Right. Yep.
They're less than $5,000, we can get
do
some
it.
of them done. But I do think the window piece, if we get the details from you, we could contact a couple of companies and say, what's your price? But I know you've got a lot going on, so that, maybe that happens later, John,
You probably wouldn't want to do it till spring. or
Yeah,
June,
yeah. Yeah,
It's warm out, so.
yeah.
The one thing is that you probably do want to talking to some people late spring, because people are going to get booked up.
Right,
It's going to get pushed
right,
off, and
right.
they want to get it done
Yeah.
before the fall.
Yeah.
That's my perspective.
What about you, Ron?
Okay.
Yeah.
Because again, I
Very
look at
good.
the list and I think general air sealing could be considered maintenance.
Yep.
You don't think
No,
so?
that's really improvement. So some of it could
Okay.
be considered. It's
But I'm
probably a
looking at the
different-
price, and so it's kind of
Yeah.
$1,300. Anyway, we can talk further about
Well,
what we
Probably
would
a few
put.
hours involved in that.
Yeah,
that's the-
but we could talk about what we would put in the maintenance category versus what we would put in the capital reserve category. Yeah,
Yep. Break it up.
but we would have money to do all of this
That's basically
potentially.
a couple of men going around for, or a man going around for a couple of days, and he'd have some caulking and some foam and some other material to go with it.
Well, we're finally rolling on this then. This is good.
Anything else?
I think we're good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
The Harpswell Select Board meeting of Thursday, February 1st, 2024. We'll start with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alrighty. Adoption of the agenda.
I got nothing.
No?
No?
No.
Well, public comment? You might want to go first.
My name is Barry Crommett. I live down in South Harpswell, and I just have a few comments about our unfortunate situation with the town dock. I really just want to thank you guys. I know I hear through the grapevine that a lot of ideas are being thrown around. We realize all the users. I've used it about 20 years, and I'm familiar with most of the, all the commercial guys and the recreational guys down there. I've talked to about half of them, in the last month or so. And I just want to let everyone know we really appreciate all your efforts. We know there's no time frame. We know it's a huge job, but we just wanted to let you know that. I certainly don't know all the people that fish down there or swim down there, but it'll be
sorely missed until hopefully something can be done. Also, I wanted to say, in talking with the other people that I know that live down there and use the dock a lot, we're certainly in support of and would love to see another dock somewhere else in town as well. Ever since I moved here 20 years ago, I always thought it'd be great to have, obviously, in any of these waterfront communities, have more town landings, more docks, more places to put a boat in. I know, again, it takes a ton of resources and it's very hard to do, but boy, what great assets for the town. So thank you for your efforts, and I'll now let the ladies speak.
All right, thanks. Ready?
Thank you.
All right. Who's next?
Hi. My name is Tara Mason. I'm a longtime resident of Harpswell, and I'm a business owner. I just wanted to read an email.
Move a little, bring the mic a little closer to you.
Is that better?
But I can hear you fine, but.
Okay.
Oh, she says you're good.
Okay.
I better.
I just want to read an email that I sent to some members. Please allow me to express my concerns surrounding the short-term rental task force. What is of most concern to me is what transpired at the recent meeting on 1/30/24. The blatant disregard for the public who were in attendance was insulting and patronizing. Ms. Covey, although well-meaning, lacks the qualities necessary to skillfully hold the position of the chairperson of such an overarching topic. This meeting was very important to the public considering the recent devastation to Harpswell's coastline. Discussing short-term rentals at this time seems to lack insight into the heart of this town. Ms. Covey granted permission for others to speak. She allotted 15 minutes for those present to speak, and of note, Ms. Covey used 7 minutes of this time to read emails. While those from the public were still speaking, Ms. Covey was occupied as she gathered her belongings, thus sending a very loud message without using one word that the public is a nuisance to her agenda. Again, considering the recent devastation to Harpswell's coastline, I believe there was much on people's minds and the time limit should not have been imposed on the public who attended the meeting. Please reconsider the position Ms. Covey currently holds on the short-term rental task force. She is terribly out of touch with what short-term rentals can do to help rebuild our beautiful community. I would expect that my concerns will be addressed during the next meeting. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, my name is Emily Woods, property manager. I was born in Maine and have lived my whole life proudly as a Harpswell resident. I have cleaned and managed houses and venues for over a decade. During that time, I have never once seen an issue or cause for concern that would require a task force to instruct a policy or any type of regulation. I have attended most of the short-term rental task force meetings, and I am disheartened and greatly disappointed in the way this is all being handled. For weeks, I, as well as so many others, have asked, what was the catalyst, the concern, the very reason as to why this task force was formed? For all the major points that have been raised in this process, all shifted in favor of short-term rentals. If there were a true cause for concern, we, the property managers, are the ones who should be so clearly informed. It became grossly apparent as the meetings went on that there was another agenda not related to short-term rentals, and this has caused much distrust in the community. We spent hours listening to members talk about our profession and seek to regulate it when there is no issue or any cause for regulation. We send emails, ask questions, make phone calls, and we never receive any reply. Those who sit as chairmen are there to represent their community, listen, and hear our concerns. The meetings are not being handled properly. Time is not managed well. By Covey's own admission, emails get lost. She also did not want to call the hard and tiring work that we do a career. To form a task force on this very subject and not have the respect for those who perform it is quite insulting. I see Covey repeatedly shut down other people who volunteered to work this task force. It is alarming that the ones who truly speak for the hard workers have the knowledge and the local companies who also benefit from renters be silenced. I am one who does not like to get heated, but when my career is gambled and I am told I should be mute on the subject, how else are we supposed to be heard? We're told to send our concerns in email. Again, they are never answered. Not even a courtesy reply of acknowledgement. Bob, who is also on the task force, goes back and forth on his word numerous times. Affordable housing has been dragged into the short-term rental conversation where the two matters have absolutely no relation. The houses I manage, I tell you now, are in the multi-millions. No middle-income person would be able to afford it. I'd also like to address an interaction I had with a board member. As we entered the entryway here, said member was very insincerely stated, "I'm sorry to offend." To which my response was, please do not speak to me. What needs to be said needs to be done with the rest of the public and the cameras recording. Because if one were so truly sorry, they would have done such. The board member continued to walk with me in the parking lot, continuing to speak on the matter. making me very uncomfortable. It was inappropriate and out of line, and said members should be reminded on this board's code of conduct. So lastly, my questions are, whose idea was this? Who commissioned it? And what is the reason we're all here? I'm certain these are simple enough to answer. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Allison Hawks, Cundy's Harbor. I'm here today, which I wouldn't normally be, but after Tuesday night's meeting, I find it very important to be here. And having my voice silenced is very disrespectful. So I'm here to ask the other two of you to help manage this situation however it needs to be managed so that we can repair whatever damage is happening right now. And I hopefully you two are aware, but if you aren't. The work plan that was presented was less than accurate in information, and it sits there being read by citizens that think it's a real problem. That work plan has never been brought to a meeting. That plan is instead morphed into multiple other documents and schedules. It says that at least one business has built staff housing to address workforce housing, and that's not true. That's a lie. And that was brought to you on what you made the ordinance on, why we need a policy in Harpswell. And that document has so many inaccuracies and false statements in it. And I'm sorry that you were duped by that, but you were. Some properties may not be correctly valued for tax purposes. Is the property tax the town gets not enough for us to regulate our own home? Homeowners don't need more taxes. After asking multiple meetings where this came from with no answer, Jane finally admitted it Tuesday night. She's having few private conversations with citizens and a couple complaints from codes, and we still have none of those have been produced. We have no codes that have been produced to date that have said what those codes complaints were, just that she's heard them. And is that governing in good faith? All alleged concerns were taken down one by one. Affordable housing. They've agreed as a task force, they're not even talking about affordable housing anymore because it shouldn't even be brought to there. It was a non-issue, but it was also put into your work plan to make you think that that was going to be solved by this short-term rental issue. Public safety, no issue. We've had people come and present to us. I was at these meetings. Public safety, no issue. Ambulance EMT, no issue. Trash, non-issue. Codes. Those guidelines are state level to address the septic, and it's a private owner issue, non-issue for a short-term rental task force. Water septic, non-issue. Better education was what came out of this, that we could better educate, help better educate, even though everybody that has a rental already does this stuff. Bruce brought attention to the fact that each alleged concern was addressed and the goalposts keep changing. He was again not validated by another member, told it was his feelings, and ignored. We still don't know what the real reason to write any policy is. It's clear in the motion adopted by you all that you don't know either. You're just writing a regulatory policy. You don't even know why. No issues, but we're just going to write a policy? No. Negative effects. Economic impact. It's a huge study and it needs to be done by a professional. Haven't done it. Fees imposed on owners. The social atmosphere that you're going to disrupt. We have generational neighbors, volunteers and donors that come from these people. You're pitting neighbors against each other. You're adding to the budget in a way of position and codes. And I know this is where it's going. And you're adding fees. And it's overlapping government oversight. We already have a bunch of regulations regulating this stuff. If you're going to start regulating STRs, you better look at your home, your second home, everybody's homes, not just short-term rentals. The task force has original ask of its members for the dates and the times, and that change escalated schedules and now extended dates and length meetings. So what this started as was going to be ending by town meeting has now morphed into a whole another year, schedule, tasks, asking these members to work through the summer now when they have jobs in the summer. That's what they do. manage all these short-term rentals and other stuff. 30 emails not shared timely or before the meetings, and then they're summarized by Jane at the meeting. When we are asked to limit our time to speak and that the meetings are too long, that is atrocious to me. And we're asked to be respectful of the time. The chair continually hands out documents to the task force at the meeting that are never seen by the task force members until they're sitting at the table. That is ill-prepared for a meeting, and that takes up our time. Don't ask the public to have no say if you're ill-prepared. You already added a half an hour to the meeting times. Your chairperson responsibilities. I'm sorry, you're failing. Your committee members have no idea what's going on. You're pitting each of them against each other. It's disgraceful. You need to go look back over the chairperson responsibilities and do your due diligence, please. You are supposed to guide, not lead. And the biggie for me, public participation. I've sat where you've sat, and I've sat on school board, and I've sat on tons of committees. And my favorite thing, public comment. Because I am not arrogant enough to think that I know everything because I sit behind a desk with a title. You are elected to serve the public. That doesn't mean you're smarter than the public. And on this, I will end. And I brought this up, and I was cut off at public comment. I don't even know if I made it to the meeting time because I wasn't afforded that. By you. I was afforded that by everyone that still sat there and listened because they weren't going to be so rude as to cut off other people that wanted to speak. I'll end with this because this is the one point I wanted to make. I had other points, but this is the one I wanted to make. It's really your job to decide if this is important enough to affect Harpswell in the way that we are running this. We had 2 storms. We had catastrophic losses. You know, the town did too. We don't even know the impact from that yet. And we are going to be messing with the economics of Harpswell. Short-term rentals are embedded in this town. And I'm asking you 3 to have a discussion about how to move forward better with this because it's not working. And it was mentioned at the meeting and it's come out in public comments. There's so much distrust here. That's not Harpswell. That is not how we run things. We trust each other. We trust each other to do the right thing, even when no one's looking. So if you guys don't know the rules, maybe go back over them. Maybe get some, counseling on what your role is as a select person and a public servant. Thank you.
Hi there, Sherry Blackstone, Cundy's Harbor. Thank you for giving me a few minutes to speak.
Sure.
I'm a little uncomfortable doing this.
Relax, not hard.
Okay. I've been a resident of Harpswell since I was a young child. I'm a business owner in our community, a wife, a mother who has raised her children here, and care deeply for our residents and homeowners and our way of life that we have here in Harpswell. I just want to express a few concerns regarding the short-term rental task force committee. It's extremely concerning to me, just given the devastation our town has endured with all the storms. Many are trying to figure out how to just rebuild and how to move forward, repair their homes. As a community, as individuals. We should be working together to ensure our residents are able to rebuild. Focusing on them would seem much more useful. We need our tourists now more than ever to help with that. And I don't feel that I am being heard or respected in the meetings in which I attend. It seems that I am not being given a fair chance to share my knowledge of the industry because I do have the knowledge. It just doesn't want to be heard. When I am speaking, the hand of the chairperson goes up to stop me from speaking. It's very disrespectful. There are a few committee members who are given as much time as they like to speak, and it's apparent that the leadership of the committee is quite unbalanced. In Tuesday's meeting, it did come to light after having asked the question for months what the driving force was behind forming this committee, and Jane said that it was her. I have a difficult time understanding how, as the chairwoman of this committee, can remain neutral and manage to fairly examine all information, letters, comments, and emails that are sent to her. It's been clear from the beginning that there is a huge agenda to be met and pushed through. There's a lot of questions surrounding the work that the group is doing. There's a lot of mistrust. I hear a lot of comments from community homeowners, business owners that have reached out to me. I don't understand how there can also be a working group in place to form a policy or a regulation when we, as a task force team, we have no knowledge of the negative impacts from any short-term rentals in our town. It's all positive. There may be a few people who have had a bad experience with a renter next door or whatever, but we have bad experiences with just our neighbors, and we have to deal with them forever. Short-term renters come and go. And with all they give to this town, I just don't understand how they can even be thinking about forming a policy or a regulation. We don't have all the information. It's not there. And respectfully, I have learned that the chair of this task force did not adequately share proper information or guidance with task force members. Many questions are still left unanswered. Much disrespect is shown to the public. It seems that this task force is a bit mismanaged. The new people that have never sat on a committee got no rundown of how anything works, how it runs, what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do, what we can say, who we can ask. It's an unfair advantage.
Thank you.
I'm Eric Lusk of Harpswell Neck. I have had the opportunity to be on the board of a school district and on a couple of occasions political operations, and also as a 20-year Rotarian, I've been on that board of directors on 2 separate occasions. A big part of any of those organizations functioning well is transparency, and that comes back to process. So there are 5 process problems that I have seen in the time that I have been coming to these meetings with regards to the short-term rental task force. The first problem is there are public letters going to the committee that are difficult for other members of the public to retrieve. With the school board, if a letter goes to the board of directors, it shows up in the next board packet. I would expect that a government operation such as this would go by the same rules. If somebody sent a letter to anybody on the MSAD 75 board of directors, that letter became a public record and would show up in the next board packet, and the public can see it. Not all task force members are called upon equally. I don't think it's a secret that I was not necessarily voting with the majority on the MSAD 75 school board most of the time. Okay, I always had an opportunity to get my piece in. I always had an opportunity to provide my thoughts. When I show up and I see that not all task force members are being called upon equally, there is a problem. That suggests a bias, and it does not enhance transparency, because now I don't get to hear what some of the task force members are getting to say. Then the next item would be members of the public are given short shrift when it's time for public comment. And I think we've covered this earlier, The chair of the task force said she was going to go in for 15 minutes of public comment, and then we went through what amounts to a filibuster of losing 7.5 minutes of that, meaning many members of the public didn't have an opportunity to provide their comment. Something else that winds up happening is it is certainly within the right of a board or a task force or a committee to say we're going to limit people to 1 minute, we're going to limit people to 3 minutes. But to say somebody doesn't get to speak at all is unusual and would require some really serious checking of the rules and bylaws to see where that is allowable. We get to production of work materials not being shared with the public, and in this past meeting with other members of the task force. If there is going to be a rule change within MSAD 75 on a bylaw or with regards to a procedure, the public gets to see what that is, what the suggested changes are. If there's going to be something having to do with the budget, everybody gets to look at the same information, including the public, because after all, it is the public's tax dollars we're spending here. Last item on process. The task force chair is not to lead the task force to particular conclusions or points of view. A chair is not supposed to stick their thumb on the proceedings. And I know of an instance where a Rotary chair, president rather, had a very specific set of agenda, and you would never know until it came time for us to cast our ballots. He didn't even get to vote as the Rotary chair, or president rather. He didn't even get to vote, but you would never know if he was happy or not happy until after the vote was done, because he made sure to be unbiased in his presentation and how he facilitated the conversation. Now let's get to the purpose. The hospitality industry is the single biggest industry in the state of Maine. It is not lobstering, it is not agriculture, it is the hospitality industry. Do we need to have regulations put on the hospitality industry? Well, we know that they need to collect sales taxes. We know that there need to be meal and entertainment taxes collected. I don't think anybody is disputing that part. We all know everybody is expected to file an honest tax return. But do we need to have regulations on the short-term rental industry? I have heard on any number of occasions now, and I've spoken with a number of people in the community who are realtors and in the property management business. There is barely an overlap between the short-term rental inventory and the long-term inventory. What is going to be a short-term rental is not something that somebody is going to be able to afford for a long-term rental, or that the owner of the short-term rental wants to hand over for a long-term rental in the first place. That being the case, I have yet to understand why we are spending all of this time trying to figure out ways to regulate an industry that has done nothing wrong, pays their taxes, and is not connected with the problem we were told was the genesis of the committee in the first place, a shortage of long-term rentals. I think, as we say in fishing, we're fishing in the wrong hole. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Anybody else out there? I think we heard from everybody. All right. At this point, we'll keep moving along on our agenda. Select board announcements.
Other than I'm seeing some signs attached to utility poles out there, and that's a big no-no. Don't do that. They're private property and they belong to the utility. And
Yeah, I don't know who that guy is.
yeah, yeah. Just get them off the poles and don't put them up there.
Yeah. Town administrators report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. I did want to report to the board and to the general public that we had an interview team that consisted of myself, Chairman Johnson, Chief David Mercier, and Chief Ben Wallace to to interview 3 consulting firms that responded to the town's request for proposal for a new centrally located emergency services building. So we recently conducted those interviews, and the 4 of us unanimously agreed that the town should move forward with Port City Architecture of Portland. Great Falls Construction of Gorham was one of the respondents, and also Artifacts of Bangor was a respondent. Port City Architecture has a lot of experience building public service buildings, particularly fire departments in the state of Maine. And I would say tonight, I just wanted you to know that this is the suggestion of our interview team, and I wondered if you need more information or you would authorize me to work on a contract with Port City Architecture for moving forward. I would say that we really see this as kind of a 2-step process, and Port City Architecture was really good about saying step 1 is really an analysis of our needs in Harpswell. What are our current operations for these fire and rescue services? You know, what do we need to house those operations, and what do we need if we're looking at the future and how things might grow? And then this consultant would actually help us look at space needs, operational needs, and then what site would most accommodate those needs now and in the future. So the first step would be sort of the analysis. That would, involve working with the town's fire and rescue committee, which has representation from the 3 departments. And eventually we would arrive at kind of architectural renderings, drawings, a price tag that you might then take to the voters.
To answer your question, I'm assuming these 3 firms provided you with packets.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I would be, not that I don't trust you guys.
No, that's fine.
But I would just for the fun of it, would like to look
Sure.
at those packets.
Absolutely.
I'll give you mine.
Okay.
Oh, I have extra upstairs, so,
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
would you like to just wait before you kind
Sure.
of, okay, that's fine, that's
Yeah.
fine. I just wanted to report on that. And then another item, the gentleman mentioned the town dock, so I did want to report to the select board that the town planner, the harbor master, and myself, we're going to sit down and really talk about what should our public discussion be, what should our public process be about that situation. And so, hopefully within 2 weeks, I might have a better sense of how we would suggest that we move forward on that issue. I mean, obviously, we reported the damage to our insurance company. It's up in the air whether that, will be covered. We're getting a sense it might be, but, until there's a final decision, you never know. It's also possible that FEMA will declare those storm events to be disasters that we would then potentially receive federal funding to replace what we lost. So, I mean, there is this opportunity to get some, financial resources to
Gotta wait for
rebuild
the dust
there.
to settle a little bit on some of the stuff.
Yeah, and I think also, we have put in our preliminary assessment reports to FEMA for public damage. That was our responsibility. And we know that people in Harpswell have put in reports for private damages as well. We still are getting information, just like I'm sure private property owners are seeing things too that maybe they didn't see initially. We got a call that we should go take a look at the retaining wall at Graveyard Point.
Oh, I've been meaning to look at that.
And so I am going to reach out to the town's engineer, because again, with the naked eye, you can't always see sort of what structurally may have happened to something. But we are going to bring the town's engineer in to look at a couple of locations where we don't really have the expertise to evaluate and assess something like that.
Those graves were being washed out at one point, that's why.
I don't think we're dealing with that, but somebody reported seeing erosion behind the wall.
Yeah.
If the water went up
So,
over it, and I know it did.
That's a
yeah,
concern.
Yeah.
So I just wanted you to be aware that, we're still, even though we submitted information to the best of our knowledge by that due date, we're still continuing to take a look at the situation and evaluating what some of those damages are to potentially public infrastructure. Thank you.
Okay. All right. 2024 budget review and related matters.
Do you need a little break?
Mary,
to
you gonna
set-
fire up
set
the,
or-
Are you going to do the sustainability?
Oh, no, we're not gonna do that, because we're still gonna do a little bit of work on what might come out of our maintenance budget, what might come out of reserve, so we're not gonna ask the board to take a position on use of the resiliency reserve tonight.
Not tonight.
Not yet.
Yep. That Fort City is all over it.
Sounds like a good one.
Yeah.
But this,
I
just,
think you should look at them. They did a
just for
wonderful
fun. I
job.
mean, I'm
so-
not-
Oh, yeah,
No, I think
I
that's
just,
fine. That's really fine.
It was fun.
I'm pleased you're interested in wanting to do that. That's great. So we're back looking at the overall municipal budget that's being proposed for 2024. And I don't know how that's coming across to our viewers at home, but hopefully they can see.
What if the TV was bigger?
So we're currently looking at a $7.3 million budget. It represents about a 6-point increase in our appropriations from 2023 to 2024. The last couple of changes that relate to this budget have to do with a reduction in the recycling center budget. We asked the manager to take a look at that. And I don't know, maybe I jumped ahead. But the recycling budget is sub-account 2,000. And he reduced the, I guess it was the waste disposal line, because we felt like some of the tonnages were maybe on the estimates were on the higher side, and based on what's happened the last couple of years, that we could reduce that tonnage figure. So that number went down. His budget went down about $15,000. And then, under town landings, we discussed as a staff that we believe that we really should address the giant stairs issue. So I think we talked about how that had been damaged as a result of the storm. Again, that may be something that FEMA would reimburse us for. We spent about $8,000 or $9,000 having a local company put some new material on that trail this fall.
And it wasn't done, thank goodness.
They didn't do the entire project?
We didn't have the stone on top.
Yeah,
Oh,
we didn't have
yeah.
the stone on top. So we are actually budgeting now $15,000 to do that project. So reducing the recycling center $15,000, putting this in for the Giant Stairs Trail piece, pretty much takes us back to the number we were at.
$110 difference.
Within $110. So we just wanted to point out those changes to the board tonight and see if you had any questions overall on the appropriation side, and then we can move to reviewing the compliant budget, the revenues that we use to offset the municipal budget, a review of the ARPA funds, and use of fund balance. So what are we going to next? Is it the LD? Yeah.
Yeah. That's much better than $700.
Well, so what happens when we look at the budget? We start in the fall, and we make some projections about our estimated revenues. And then we reach the end of the year, and we have a much better sense of, obviously, what our revenues were for the entire year. We always tend to be conservative. I mean, that's been our practice. And we looked at how well our revenues came in at the end of 2023, and we felt like we could make some adjustments. So what you're now seeing is a list that includes, excise tax, registrations from automobiles, boats, building permits, mooring fees, licenses, franchise fee, cable TV franchise fee, recycling center transfer station fees. All of these things add up to $2.4 million. And that's a little bit higher estimate than what we previously had when we first went to the Budget Committee. So you can now see that our estimated proposed LD1 compliant budget with these new revenue projections is $7,432,884. We're proposing $7,355,666 in appropriations. And that leaves us $77,000 below the LD1 limit. And so that's based on those revenue projections, and we wanted to bring that to the board tonight to make sure you were aware of that.
Good job.
Yeah. It's good.
Okay. So the next one is our use of fund balance. Again, this is an item that we generally wait to the end of our fiscal year. Our treasurer, deputy town administrator works very hard to get our financial statements completed in January. Our auditing firm has come in, and our undesignated fund balance is really at a great point, and we feel that the town can afford to use some of that money to put into capital projects. So we had initially recommended that $600,000 be used to offset the tax commitment, so that stands. We're not suggesting any change to that number. But we're also recommending that $350,000 of the fund balance be put into the capital road reserve. We'd like to do as much work on Peabody Road as we can in 2024, potentially. And we know that we had some significant damage to Little Island Road. That was the most damaged town road as a result of the recent storms. So that looks like we're going to have some capital road work to do there. And so we recommend that that go into that reserve. And we have talked at the Budget Committee level and here at the Select Board level about doing a town-wide revaluation. It's a 2-year process. So we have some money set aside, we have an appropriation recommended, and then use of fund balance will get us to this $375,000 level. We'd like to put out a bid after the town meeting, assuming the voters support the appropriation and the use of fund balance, because ultimately they get to decide that. And then we could put that out to bid, hopefully sign a contract, and that process could get started. But the end result would not happen until 2026. Would you like to say anything about the healthy fund balance and
I mean, each year we
the
have
policy?
been building it. We didn't have a large use of it last year in anticipation of if voters were to approve purchasing Harpswell Coastal Academy. So when that article was defeated, it left a very above our target balance, very healthy fund balance last year. So it's time to use some of that to help and not go back to the taxpayer with some appropriations.
Yep.
And the tax value between what we have in the fund plus the $150,000 appropriation plus the recommended $175,000 for the townwide would bring us to a $400,000 level to complete that project. And then the roads, between what we have, what is proposed for appropriation in this March town meeting, plus the fund balance, will get us up to about $671,000, which would cover the engineering and the work on Peabody Road to bring up the project up to base pavement grade, and then in 2025, it would be the paving and the driveway attachments. And then the work on Little Island Road, Christie mentioned. And so it's tight, but that should cover those projects.
Yep. Nothing for nothing. What was their total evaluation this year?
Oh, off the top of my head, I mean.
Sorry.
We're talking,
Never mind.
I mean, I think it's over 2 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't remember
I didn't
exactly
know-
the number.
I didn't know what it went up this year.
I just finished the footnotes. It went up over 100 and... It's in the writing.
That's all right. I'll find out later.
Not in here, I'm
I'll
sorry.
find out later. Just curious.
You know, I should say too, so our proposed appropriations are like at a 6% increase. We know for our school budget that half of the year is already determined because their new budget would start effective July 1st. So we can do some preliminary calculations now. Sometimes at the town meeting, we have an estimated tax rate.
Yep.
We're going to meet with the school board in March before the town meeting, I believe. They've already selected a date, so I'll let you know about that. I think it's early March, and they'll kind of roll out their proposed budget and the impacts on each of the 4 communities in the district. So it will be helpful to get that information too. I mean, we can make some estimates, but it's better to have that come from them. We prefer that we get it from the district, that as opposed to we just say a certain % increase. So I think this is a reasonable budget. I think it helps the town move forward in a number of areas. Again, we know we have a lot of work to do on this resiliency matter, as, you know, a result of storm damage and ongoing issues, but
Should have brought it up. We
work on that.
Mary Ann at our first meeting last night, the kickoff for town roads. So, it was well attended, I would
Very
say.
well attended.
We don't have our head in the sand.
Nope, but, you know, they got to keep their expectations low. You know, it's going to be a while.
I just want to say, if we're finished with discussing it, that I really commend not only the administrative staff, the treasurer, but all of the staff for working diligently to look at their cost and bringing to us what looks like, and certainly for the budget committee, looks like a very well-reasoned, thoughtful budget that takes care of the priorities, and the give and take between departments helps a lot to bring a budget in that is workable and is going to be able to fulfill the priorities that the town has. So it's not to take away from the budget committee, but the staff really are the ones who know what's going on and what needs to be done.
Yeah, I think we always appreciate the role of the budget committee too. It's sort of like this mini town meeting. We get a sense of what the concerns are. And it's a helpful process. I think the public gets to watch how the information is presented and the budget committee discusses it, so.
How the sausage is made. Yeah, basically.
Oh, so next item, again, this use of ARPA, because these are federal funds that were provided to the town, it has no impact on our tax rate. And we wanted to show just generally how the town has used or approved the use of the funds thus far. We've received like in the neighborhood of $520,000 back in April of 2022. The voters approved spending $196,000 primarily on our update to our comprehensive plan. That was relatively significant, that contract that we signed, updating the website, doing some affordable housing analysis, emergency communications consulting, a cardiac compression machine for both the dedicated paramedic vehicle and for an Orrs Bailey Island Fire Department vehicle. And then we used some money for a broadband consultant. The second year in 2023, the voters approved additional money for the comprehensive plan update, broadband, life packs for the 3 fire departments, and then $20,000 for our heating assistance program. So to date, the voters have approved $320,000. We basically have $200,000 left. We have to decide before the end of 2024. Our voters have to decide by the end of 2024 how that money should be committed, not necessarily expended, but committed. What we're proposing in this town meeting is that $75,000 be used for emergency communications equipment and consulting services. This helps complete our communication system amongst the 3 towers, the Mitchell Field Tower, the new one at the Orrs Island Station, and the tower behind the recycling center. We also think if there's any money left over in that area of the emergency communications equipment, it would help the 3 departments purchase new portable radios that need to be both analog and digital capable. We're also suggesting that $20,000 go into the heating assistance program. And this is a one-time request from the Tedford shelter that the town of Harpswell support a new shelter that it's planning to build in Brunswick in the kind of Cook's Corner area, and that request was for $50,000.
A regional
Regional,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
What did
so-
I say?
No, you're
Oh,
right.
okay.
I just want to make the point that, we're
Yeah.
not supporting Brunswick homeless people.
Right,
This is
right.
a regional, we could very well have some of our own.
So we recognize there would still be some money left, and we had suggested that maybe some of that could be used to implement some ideas coming out of affordable housing or coming out of the comprehensive plan. But again, we have this potential vote in May. We're going to talk about that. We have a school budget vote where you could potentially put something on a referendum, and then we have a November vote. So there's time to ask our voters how they want to spend the remaining funds.
And we need to obligate it this year.
Yes,
If we're going to have.
yeah, before the
use
end of
it.
the year.
Yeah. It's good.
So that's a review of that. And I will say, so now that you've had this review of the budget, we're going to put this into a kind of warrant format. So next week, you'll have the first draft of the annual town meeting warrant and all of the numbers, the appropriations, the use of fund balance, use of ARPA, that will be put into that warrant.
Good.
Further
good?
questions on the budget? No? Okay.
Never.
I left room for questions.
They're all been answered ahead of time, right?
Special town meeting scheduling options.
Number is that?
So I know we brought this up with the board in the December timeframe. It came forward because we had a sense that the comprehensive plan update was not going to be ready for March. And we heard from that task force that they like the idea of the board considering a special town meeting. So the staff laid out option 1, option 2. If you want to have a in-person meeting where the voters who are there discuss what's on the warrant, which we assume would be the comp plan update, and the vote is taken in person at the meeting. So that's option 1. And we've suggested that that meeting could be held on May 11th. We kind of worked backwards to show you kind of the steps that would occur along the way. I think, from what I understand, the comp plan task force still doesn't have a final draft that it is ready to kind of release to the public so that the public has an opportunity to comment on it, and we would hold required public hearing for feedback on that. So, the clock is ticking here, and we assume they're going to get to that point where things would be ready for a May 11th town meeting. The other option is if you wanted to have a vote at the same time that the school budget is voted on, which is going to be June 11th. If you decided to go that route, it would be a secret ballot referendum vote, which means that your public hearing would happen sometime before the date of the vote, and that's where the discussion would occur, at that kind of public hearing. And then people would vote by secret ballot,
Yeah.
which they would be able to do that 30 days before the June 11th date. I think, that from what I understand, the task force has made a recommendation. I believe they took a vote. They prefer an in-person floor vote, and that's what they asked the select board to consider.
I generally like the cases where more people show up to vote, and that would probably be the secret ballot. There's 2 weeks difference in the timeline that the comp plan needs to be prepared.
But it doesn't leave any room for the staff.
Right. Well, it does it,
Because
it does it at a public hearing.
The public hearing does, yeah. But I think our feeling, with the task force, being a member of it, we thought we could get a crowd together on May 9th.
Shake the bushes and get them out. And it gives them
9th
2
or
more weeks
11th?
to,
What's that?
I'm sorry.
May.
I
Yeah, sorry.
I didn't follow what you,
Oh,
in
yeah, the
person.
test, we're pretty sure that it would be better if we could have public discussion the day of the vote, if there's any. There might be some more explanations.
fresh on people's minds when they
Yeah.
vote.
Yeah,
so that's the in-person meeting.
yeah,
Yeah,
May.
Yeah.
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 Well, yeah, and it gives the comp plan task force 2 more weeks to pull it off, get it together.
Exactly.
Well, we're hoping to have everything kind of pulled together, at least the draft at town meeting for people to look at. And in 2 weeks, we're bringing the Affordable Housing Committee here for a workshop. We're pretty much done with that.
Well, I guess I'd go along with the option 1.
I'm definitely in favor of option 1. I think public meetings don't necessarily get well attended, and we went during COVID with ballot votes on the
Yeah.
budget and whatnot, and I think if people have a chance to come to town meeting, express their views, maybe learn some things from the discussion, that particularly with something like a comp plan, where understanding it and
Right.
adopting it are important.
Do you think there's
I'm
anything else
I'm
that
for
we
the
would-
town meeting. I'm for the town
Do you
meeting.
think there's anything else that we would have on that floor vote?
Yes, I think there would be the floodplain, the new floodplain maps.
Yep.
I think there's a few ordinance issues
There's more
potentially
than one reason to
that,
get people out to.
so we might try to have land use related matters on that.
Yep.
So budget would really be your March town meeting, and then I think tonight if you just vote on the scenario and suggest a May special town meeting, that date might have to move a little bit if we don't get this draft document. You know, right now it's based on a May 11th date, and getting this draft out there by March 6th, or having the comp plan vote on the draft that they want to put out to the public hearing, that's a month away. I don't know. Or do you think that you're going to reach that date with the final draft? Yeah.
I tell you
So,
what,
I mean, I think that May date we could push it out
No.
1 or 2 weeks. What I'm saying is I don't think you have to make a specific
No.
vote on that May 11th, but that you're
The May-
choosing the in-person floor vote.
We've only got a couple sticking points, interior zoning, and it's 2 options, and trying to get, never mind.
Yeah.
You get it.
So I'll move that we do that option 1 with understanding that there's some flexibility in the dates.
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
Did take care of that?
Yeah.
More importantly, airboat at the Sebago Lake Derby.
You know, I've been looking lately at the people going through the ice, and I'm thinking, wow, I hope they ask for our airboat up there, because
Hey,
I can't believe people are still going out on
I
the
know.
ice.
We've had 2 rescues with that airboat, 2 separate years.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
good with it?
Yes.
I
Need a
move-
vote or just a head
I move
nod?
that we allow the
Vote.
airboat to be used at the fishing derby.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No discussion. All right. Authorization of the warrants.
I move we approve the warrants.
Second.
All in favor? Public comment? Mr. Lusk, anything else? No? You're it, so. Yeah, Debbie, he's done. Other business, anything going on down there?
I think it was good you mentioned the workshop with the Affordable Housing Task Force in 2 weeks.
Affordable,
Attainable, excuse me.
Right,
Also, I think there's the Clark Cove
Oh, yes.
draft that has come out of the Town Lands Committee would be on your agenda in a couple of weeks. We would like you to meet next week, because we would have the first draft of the warrant, but then on the 15th, you might be able to approve what goes in the printed version of the
Yep.
annual town report.
I'll be away, but if you only need to,
Yeah, I think it'll be in draft form, so
All right.
it won't be final, but
Send it to me.
we'd
I'll look
like
at
to,
it. Yeah.
we'd like to get your feedback, so on the 15th, you're seeing it for the second time and discussing if you like the way we have put it together, the sequence of the articles and the grouping of the articles and,
Right.
that type of thing. We'd
We'll
like to get
email
your
it to you,
feedback
Ken.
on.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
oh, yeah. Done that.
And this is probably more for Christie than for the other 3 of you, but you are going to see the math come through. I have a bunch of clients who are in the insurance industry. They own agencies, I am head of the insurance committee for the prestigious Oars Bailey Yacht Club. Always got to throw in prestigious. And I have a sailboat. The premiums on my sailboat, and I haven't made a claim, are up 20% in 3 cycles, and I think it's probably going to move. But in terms of the yacht club, the insurance premiums in 2 years are up 30%, and we have not had a claim in at least a dozen years. We've not had a single claim. Intact insurance, I think, is connected to Atlantic Specialty Group. Don't be surprised when the premiums come back and they're a lot bigger. So, sorry.
No.
We won't hold it against you.
No. In that case, we're adjourned.